is what's coming up on your horizon. Well, more than ever, we are a matriculation nation. Since the year 2000, college enrollment has grown by 37% nationwide. Today, we're heading off to campus to talk to 3 different college presidents, as well as visit with the Chancellor of Higher Education. Now, we'll also explore how today's digital learners are impacting the classroom. Stay with us for Oklahoma Horizon.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education.
Oklahoma's investment in career tech provides more than nationally recognized technology education and training. It produces solid financial returns for the state's economic future. Oklahoma Career Tech, elevating our economy.
And the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping good people grow good things. And now, from the Career Tech Studios in Stillwater, here's your host, Rob McClendon.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us here on Horizon. Well, mention the words higher education, and the word innovation typically follows. Yet there is an old university joke I am reminded of, and it goes something like this. How many academics does it take to change a light bulb? The answer? Change. Who said anything about change? Universities are often called institutions of higher learning, and for good reason. They are institutions with entrenched traditions. Yet, the challenges facing today's colleges and universities, well, they are numerous. Everything from competition with private for-profit schools to students more attuned to digital learning than the lecture hall. Oh, and did we mention college is getting crazy expensive? Joining me now is our Andy Barth.
Well, Rob, students and parents alike are unhappy and unsure about the rising cost of college. With the student debt ceiling reaching more than $1 trillion, some wonder if it's even worth it, while others believe it's a wise investment.
80, 30 on 2.
It's been more than 4 years since the stock market's most recent crash, leaving millions of Americans unemployed.
I think the first thing we need to do is not panic because we are going through a hard economic time.
Nationally, college enrollments are growing by close to 7% annually, an increase of nearly 140,000 students per year. Yet some question whether today's students receive the right skills. Oklahoma City University President Robert Henry.
There are high-paying jobs that are seeming to require a master's degree. But I think the primary thing is that education needs to take care and be sure that it's relevant, be sure that it's teaching the skills that are needed.
In campuses across the country, a new emphasis is being placed on skills training as well as higher education. And here at Langston University, President Kent Smith says he believes the next decade could determine the fate of higher education.
I think we're at a crossroads. I really do. And I think in the next 10 years or so, we will have what I call the haves and the have-nots. I think you'll have the universities who embrace technology in a dynamic way will be those who survive. And I think those who don't, I think some of them will go extinct.
And Smith says Langston will not be one of those colleges refusing to move forward.
One of the pieces that we need to do, or will do a much better job of, is infusing technology into the classes that we have. I foresee more online courses for Langston University. I also see more online hybrid courses, meaning a mix of traditional teaching mixed in with some online pieces within the same class.
Today, we mark an important milestone on the road to health insurance reform and higher education reform.
In 2010, President Obama set 2 national goals for education. By 2020, he wants America to once again have the highest proportion of college graduates in the world, up from its current 16th place, with community colleges adding an additional 5 million graduates. Currently, community colleges enroll more than 6 million students nationwide. Redlands Community College President Larry Devane says his school helps students go straight to the workplace.
Our folks tend to be from Oklahoma, they're about Oklahoma, and our placement rates are in Oklahoma. So the biggest mission we see ourselves having is that we are very much a part of what kind of quality of life are we going to have.
And while science, technology, engineering, and math are degrees highly sought after, Devane says we can't forget other skills it takes to be successful in a career.
Understanding the importance of researching, doing the work that one needs to do, whether it's to set something up or to become a producer in or to have a livelihood in, is extremely important, and that's a form of applied research.
Research that Langston's president says will demand a strong grasp on technology.
Today's graduate will enter a workplace that will have all sorts of technology demands.
Well, it's no secret how important an education is. It's been said that a college graduate earns $1 million more in their lifetime compared to non-college grads. But how do we pay for that degree? Tuition and fees currently average more than $8,500 at in-state colleges and more than $29,000 at private schools, leaving some asking, is it worth it?
Students more than ever are considering the economic payoff.
Economist Mark Sneed says that while the national student debt is more than $1 trillion, the cost of college isn't the real issue.
When you compare the payoff to a college degree to the upfront cost of a college education, even private education is a bargain. The real problem is that it all has to be paid up front.
A problem Sneed says can be fixed with a longer payoff plan.
Maybe you need a 30-year payment structure. There's no reason to believe that education couldn't be paid for over a similar term like housing. I mean, we pay for housing over 30 years because that's the price. It's expensive.
An expensive investment, but one that its payoff is tied directly to the degree area.
One thing we don't have is too many college graduates, but one thing we may have too many of is too many 22-year-old college graduates with no work experience. That's not a particularly powerful combination.
But Robert Henry says he believes you still can't discount the benefits of a well-rounded education.
You do need to know about grammar and rhetoric and logic. You do need to be able to communicate. You do need to be able to make a speech sometime in your life. It would be helpful if you could write an essay or an article that is persuasive. But they also teach you how to think and how to critically evaluate. And this is something that students and young people need today.
All to be able to compete for 21st century jobs in a global marketplace.
Now, while the cost of higher education is increasing at both public and private colleges, a new trend is emerging as online colleges charge tuition like a cell phone plan, with pay-as-you-go classes, making it much more affordable while still earning that degree.
Now, I know the president announced in his State of the Union address about a new website that the administration is creating that will allow both students and parents to compare both the cost and the quality of colleges.
That's right, Rob. As promised, the White House now has an interactive college scorecard website, which allows people to go on and get the true cost of a particular university they're interested in, as well as gather data on the student loan information, as well as graduation rates.
All right. Thank you so much, Andy.
You're welcome, Rob.
Now, if you want to link to the administration's website on higher education, you can do that at okhorizon.com, where we also have a link to a video from our partners at Face the Facts USA on the rising cost of college and the implications it could have on our economy. Now, when we return, we look at changes afoot in the classroom.
You're watching Oklahoma Horizon, featuring some of the good things that are happening in the great state of Oklahoma.
Well, my first guest today has earned a reputation as one of the brightest thinkers in the art of pedagogy, which is a fancy way of saying the science of teaching. Earlier, I was able to sit down with Mark Taylor, a longtime educator that believes it's time to change the classroom for today's digital learner.
One of the dirty secrets in higher education is in colleges, we have not required people to be prepared to teach in college. Anybody with a PhD in biology will say, go be a teacher. We wouldn't let that PhD in biology go out and be a physician, but we'll let them go be a teacher. And now, with much more emphasis on college outcomes, accountability in colleges for showing learning outcomes, we're seeing real different requirements on the faculty in colleges to be better prepared to really bring about learning. And I make a big difference between teaching and learning. There are a lot of college professors doing a lot of teaching, with very little demonstrable outcome, very little positive benefits, even though, bless their hearts, they're teaching up a storm.
With the sense of entitlement that many young people tend to have in the generation next, has that meant that in higher ed we maybe are seeing some great inflation just to meet their expectations?
Well, if you look at the nexus between student entitlement and a customer service model in higher education, and the business models in higher education, then we do see some naturally occurring grade inflation to keep the customer satisfied. Don't want to upset them. The real issue with the sense of entitlement is that it reduces students' senses of responsibility for their own learning. So I spend a whole lot of my time with faculty people helping them learn methods and techniques to help students become more responsible for their own learning. If you think about the traditional college classroom, here's this active, responsible teacher with a bunch of passive, disengaged students who are the recipients of this service. That's what college has always looked like, but it's bad instruction. What I advocate in higher education is killing the lecture. The lecture model in higher education is the enemy.
So no more sage on the stage?
No, well, you can be a sage on the stage, just don't burn up classroom time being that sage on the stage. Capture it on a video and let students see your best explanation before they come to class. If you've got a traditional college class, you have them for 3 one-hour episodes every week. Well, don't burn up those 3 hours delivering that content. Capture your best explanation either on video, Camtasia, voice over a PowerPoint, and move that content, your best explanation, and students can see it out of class. The digital learner prefers that because it's not in a live environment. They can see it on a screen. It meets their anywhere, anytime digital expectation for availability. If they don't get it, they can back up and rewind. The lecture, by definition, targets, every class has a range of students. The lecture targets some band of students. Some faculty target the students that are like them, the brilliant students. They lose everybody else. Some target the slowest students. They lose all the other students. But if it's a video cast, each student can watch it enough times to get the content. Then when they come to class, they are active in what Dr. Weimer describes as the messy business of their own education. Education is not a tidy process. They come to class and they work with that content. And that's the flip of the college classroom. Move the content out of class and move the activity into class. As students get more responsible for their own learning, then they will be better employees because they will be more responsible for workplace expectations. The passive learner is not developing responsibility, so why would we expect them to be responsible at work? So we hope that changes in those educational practices would lead to a better prepared workforce.
What could this mean for traditional education? And I'm talking about the industry of education, of higher ed. Because if I can go online and find the best lecturer, why do I want to sit into an instructor's class who maybe has been doing this for 6 months?
Well, and there are some folks out there who are addressing that in very meaningful ways. The best references are on disruptive technologies in college. And there's this notion on disruptive innovations that most industries pass through periods of time of kind of slow incremental improvements to their product. Then some huge disruptive innovation comes in where the major players go out and a new set of innovators come in. And we've seen that, you know, the first computers that were very popular were Compaq and NEC and IBM, who don't even make computers anymore because these upstart companies came in. And there's a suggestion that online learning is disrupting higher ed like that. And you asked the perfect question. Why would I pay for this class when I can access the best lecturer online already? And when places like MIT and Harvard are putting Princeton are putting all their content online, it's very humbling to your bread and butter professor to say, now I'm going to offer my best explanation on this, even though that Nobel laureate's explanation is already online. I've had faculty people tell me, you're going to make me obsolete. I say no. If all you're doing is lecturing, you have already made yourself obsolete. What we need is expertise that can take students who have already been introduced to that content, no matter where they got it. But when they come to class, this educational expert knows what activities to do with them to solidify what they know, what they can do, and what they care about. And that's going to be the educator of the future, not challenged by all these other lecturers online, but able to leverage those resources in their own class. Those will be the valuable educators.
Dr. Mark Taylor, thank you for your insights.
My pleasure. A good visit with you, Rob.
Now, to hear more from Mark about the challenges of transitioning today's digital learners into the workplace, just head to our value-added section at our website at okhorizon.com.
Still to come on Oklahoma Horizon, what education can learn from the music industry. But first, a conversation with Oklahoma's Chancellor of Higher Education.
Well, Oklahoma is home to numerous universities, each of them unique. But the bulk of Oklahoma college students attend a school governed by the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education. 25 colleges and universities, including 2 research universities, 10 regional universities, a public liberal arts university, along with 12 community colleges. Now, earlier, the Chief Executive Officer for the Oklahoma State System of Higher Education visited our studios, Chancellor Glenn Johnson. Well, everyone that we spoke today talked about innovation and really the need for it in the classroom. How does someone in your position change that talk into action?
Well, it's important that we recognize that we're in a new era, we're in a new dynamic today as far as our responsibility to deliver learning opportunities to students in ways that are relevant, not only for students' needs today, but ultimately for what they will be confronted with in the marketplace. And so I think if you look at what we're doing in our colleges and universities, I think we've made some very innovative changes, quite frankly, in the way the learning opportunity is delivered. The old concept that everyone thinks about the professor in front of the classroom at a lectern, although that's still there, and it needs to be said that the most important ingredient in delivering learning opportunity is the instructor or the professor. But that being said, the way it's delivered now is dramatically different with our online courses. We have hybrid courses that combine face-to-face traditional instruction with the online opportunity, the use of iPads, the use of all of our media technology. It's just a much different environment, and candidly, I think our goal and our role is to try to utilize that technology in a way where it's integrated into our curriculum and into our classroom, and where learning is more relevant for students today.
Let's talk a little bit about student debt. You know, as a society, the only thing that we owe more on than student loans is our home mortgages. You know, it's a tough question, and you know, we heard what the economist said, that he thinks we ought to pay them out over 30 years because it is, you know, we get the benefits over that length of time. What can we do?
Well, it's something I think we need to make a distinction between the information that's coming out through the media, which focuses on the national problem, because Oklahoma really has a different and frankly a much better story to tell. A report came out from the Center for Student Success in October. There was an article in the Oklahoman in late October. They rated the 50 states in terms of students leaving college with the percentage of debt that they have. We're very proud that our Oklahoma higher education system ranked 8th in the nation in terms of students leaving college with less student debt. So essentially there would only be 7 other states where the student debt ratio is less than it is in Oklahoma. Several reasons for that. We have within our offices at the state regents, the Oklahoma College Assistance Program that's designed specifically to help students on the front end with financial literacy. Many students, as we've discussed, come in to the college environment. Some have never balanced their checkbook. Unfortunately, get into credit card situations where they may accumulate enough debt that they have to actually drop out of school to pay their credit cards. Our financial assistance and our college assistance program provides them with financial literacy information on the front end where they won't get into those situations. But those students that do have loans, we have a default prevention department that works specifically with those students to make sure that everything's intact, that they have the information they need, and they don't get into a default situation. Again, I think if you look at where Oklahoma ranks nationally, it's important to note that tuition and fees, we have a great story to tell there. Over the last 4 years, again, looking at the national situation, states like the state of California have increased tuition and fees by over 32%, Arizona and Georgia in the high 20%. Oklahoma over the last 4 years has had a 4% average tuition increase. In 2009, we were one of only 2 states in the nation to have no increase in tuition and fees. And the last 3 years, it's averaged about 5%. So we have bucked that national trend in a way that I think is providing our students. The United States Chamber of Commerce had a report earlier this year written by Margaret Spellings, who was the Secretary of Education under President George W. Bush, ranked the states in terms of affordability. State of Oklahoma ranks 7th in the nation as far as the most affordable state in the nation, not just on tuition and fees, but books, housing, and all the related costs of going to college. So we're delivering a great product to students at a very affordable cost, and I think it's important to make the distinction. While we are concerned about student debt, I think the story in Oklahoma is different than the story in a number of other states across the United States, and that speaks well for what we've done here.
With state budgets where they are, and really just stability in budgeting is maybe the best that we can expect in education, how do we go ahead and make all these changes that we see that we need to make?
All in all, we've got to make the case. There's a lot of priorities in state government. Certainly our health care issues are dominant. The Department of Human Services has big issues. Corrections always has demands. But we've got to make the case that if we look at what can move the needle forward for the state in a positive way, what we can do to address our workforce needs, I think collectively funding education has got to be a top priority for our state. And certainly our lawmakers and Governor Fallin have been there for us in the past. During the downturn, they didn't make cuts across the board. They frankly prioritized education, and we need to have the facts at our disposal where we can continue to make the case that there's not a better investment than investing in education, investing in higher education, and there will be great returns for the state if we're able to make that case persuasively, where in a year where we have new dollars, we're able to get some of those allocated to education, and again, from my standpoint, particularly higher education, but also Common Ed and Career Tech.
Next time on Oklahoma Horizon, we examine an area where Oklahoma is leading the nation, early childhood education.
Education is at the heart of the modern economy. And what's at the start of education? A good start. So in that sense, we know, because of the economics of the issue, that there's a very powerful argument to be made for investing in early childhood.
On Oklahoma Show for the Heartland, Oklahoma Horizon. Well, when it comes to changing times, higher education could learn a thing or two from rock stars. If any business sector has felt the brunt of the internet as a disruptive technology, it's the music industry, which was dealt a heavy blow by the onset of the digital download. Less than a decade ago, music buyers would pay up to $18 for an album, yet today few spend more than 99 cents for a song. In fact, many consumers don't pay for music at any price. Literally, there are thousands of music sites online where you can listen for free. And a similar dynamic is now developing in education. Several elite universities, including Stanford and Harvard, have begun multi-million-dollar efforts to provide several of their courses free online for everyone, which some believe will lead colleges to shed their lowest quality courses and their subsequent costs, and then replace them with the best courses offered by other institutions through various loose federations. And just how soon that happens may not be left up to those that sit in education's ivory towers. If the music industry is any indication, once the technology genie is out of the bottle, there's no putting it back in. And just as the musicians have had to change their business model, educators may as well. I'm Rob McClendon. Thanks for watching. See you back here next week.
Thank you for watching Oklahoma Horizon.